Now, the idea of the Anunnaki symbol, representative of this golden flying disc that has at its heart a red dot which represents the life within, and around the gold disc the idea of a blue energy field. This is actually to some degree representative of the ancient ships that used to visit your planet from the Anunnaki, and is representative of the symbols that you still see in many of the cultures on your planet, the flying disc. Represented in many different ways, of course. Not a literal representation of their ships, but close enough, in the sense that the ships were basically disc-like in the center and did possess a certain type of wings and steering mechanisms as they glided through your atmosphere, even though they didn't necessarily require them. In space, they were capable of retracting and folding in a way that allowed the ships to be more streamlined when these appendages were unnecessary in the vacuum of space. But once they entered your atmosphere, they did look like flying discs in a variety of ways. So they could steer through your atmosphere and use the gravitational fields by extending these wings to guide them and land them safely upon your planet. As many of you already understand, the Anunnaki are the extraterrestrial civilization generally responsible for the alteration of your genetic structure from what you would call the natural hominid that existed on your planet called Homo erectus to the idea of now what you call yourselves to be Homo sapien. In altering the genetic structure by including some of the Anunnaki DNA, they allowed you to create or exist in its present form, the human being, as you call yourselves, so that they would have a relationship to the Anunnaki to be utilized in a variety of ways in that relationship as workers, as companions, in a variety of ways, for their purposes of visiting your world, which fundamentally was to aid and assist them in mining minerals, gold in particular, that would allow them to alter the weather patterns of their own planet and make adjustments in that way to their energy fields. Now, the group of Anunnaki that actually visited your world, that was originally consigned to find those minerals and bring them back to the home world, were actually, to begin with, assigned to simply do this task themselves. Eventually, they found that this was something that was relatively difficult for them to do on their own, and so they believed they needed what you would call a workforce in order to aid and assist them. And knowing that there was a natural indigenous being upon the planet that was similar in form to them, they understood that they could genetically alter it to aid and assist them in this way by upgrading it, so to speak, to something more similar to their own form, and thus, by thus creating that force, allow that force to work in the mines to extract the gold and other minerals that they require, eventually also developing a long-term relationship with them in a variety of ways, even to the point of companionship many, many years after that. Now, this began somewhere around 500,000 of your years ago in the general areas that you call the Middle East and the African continent. And those branches of the hominid species that were not altered genetically by the Anunnaki evolved on their own in parallel to the human beings on your planet that the Anunnaki had created. And those that were not altered eventually evolved into the form you now call Sasquatch. So the idea is that if you had not been altered at all, today you would all be Sasquatch. But because you were altered, because you were evolved in that way, you became human beings. This also allowed for certain kinds of incarnational experiences to happen that would be very different than the incarnational experiences of Sasquatch, or Yeti, or Bigfoot, or whatever you wish to call that branch of your cousins. Now, they evolved in a very natural way, which allowed them to have a much closer connection in many ways to the idea of nature, and allowed them to develop abilities and skills that you do contain, but in a sense have forgotten that you have because of the alteration. Their abilities and skills as Sasquatch allow them to actually enter interdimensional states, passing from parallel reality to parallel reality, different dimensions to different dimensions, which is why they are so difficult to find on your planet when they don't want to be found. Nevertheless, getting back to your story, the branch that you became Eventually, there were also interminglings between some of the humans of the time and the Anunnaki on the world. And these created births, natural births of beings that you have in your legends come to call the so-called demigods and so forth. Now, the Anunnaki were much taller in general than you are. And some of the earlier races on your planet of humanity were also much taller than most of you, although you are regaining not only your height again, but also your longevity, because in times past, a lot of the genes were passed along to the human beings that were genetically created that allowed them to live for hundreds of years, because the Anunnaki lived for thousands of years. The idea is that you are regaining this ability again. The genetic material is being opened up again because of new vibrations that are now existing in this present day on your planet, allowing you more longevity, allowing you greater height, greater health, greater vitality. And you are opening up those connections energetically to the Anunnaki and those genetic materials that you contain. Now, of course, the Anunnaki themselves also contained a mixture of different genetics from different races. We will not get into that so much right now, although you can certainly understand, we will give you a little bit of a sneak preview, that one of these was what is called on that diagram the Proto-Sapiens. We will get into them another time. But you could say that in general, the Proto-Sapiens are the precursors of all the human forms in your galaxy. Now, the Anunnaki, the branch that was on your planet and creating the idea of the Homo sapien groupings, were actually just a branch. And in their original assignment, were not really supposed to tinker with the genetics of the planet. When the main council of Anunnaki discovered that they had done so and created a new intelligent race of beings, well, let's just say they weren't very happy about it. They actually recalled that Anunnaki contingent from the Earth, and in many ways left you to your own devices, allowing you to grow on your own, to evolve on your own, with some degree of guidance from them, because they felt responsible in allowing that contingent of Anunnaki to create you. They felt responsible to guide you to some degree, although it was not the original plan. And so again, the stories of visitations over time, again from the idea of angels and gods from the sky, leading and guiding and teaching in a variety of ways to allow you to grow into your own civilization and allow you to take over some of the cities that had been created and become the actual kings of old, although the Anunnaki bloodlines still coursed strongly in their veins. You see this in the representation of the ancient 10 kings of Atlantis, in Lemurian times, and even into relative modern times, as you still remember Egypt as having kings, and then eventually the idea of pharaohs. But all this goes back to the concept of the blue bloods, the royal lines, and everything that created the concept of royalty on your planet, because it is traced all the way back to the idea of the Anunnaki, who actually were slightly bluishly tinged. So the blue blood line was looked upon as the purest line in that way, although of course you all contain Anunnaki genetics. But there might be here and there some that are more directly related in direct lineages to some of those ancient genes. Now, once that began to happen, and you had on your planet contingents of humans who were creating their own civilizations, mostly guiding themselves with a little bit of input here and there from extraterrestrial beings and extra-dimensional beings, teaching them how to open up their consciousness to tap into source, to draw down and download information from a variety of sources. Then eventually humanity was pretty much left on its own in that way to evolve to a certain point to see if they would arrive at a point where they could then reconnect with the idea of extraterrestrial beings, extra-dimensional beings, which would show that they evolved to a point where the next stage of evolution could occur.
Okay, Bashar, are there any Anunnaki either here physically on Earth or communicating telepathically with anyone here?
Not in their original form contemporarily, unless you are referring to the Greys as the devolved result of a certain branch of Anunnaki. A faction of the Anunnaki set up shop, if you will, on a planet, and ultimately created catastrophes in their world that ultimately resulted in the devolution of themselves into the form you now understand as the Gray.
Right, I actually knew that.
So in that sense, they are still, to some degree, Anunnaki, though they now require the idea of the genetic material that they utilize to create the human body to begin with, to reinforce their own race and create the hybrid species so that they can incarnationally continue. So in that sense, I suppose if you want to simply talk about it incarnationally, you and we together are also offshoots of Anunnaki.
Yes, exactly.
At least to some degree genetically.
Are there any, maybe looking at it from a time-traveling standpoint, although we know there's no time really linearly, are there any ones from what we would perceive from our past that are here now that have,
from
say,
time
jumped?
to time, they do peer in, yes. From time to time, they have participated in certain things, yes. It is not that common. From time to time, this has been done, yes. It is not that common.
Okay. And when
some of what individuals have called the large Nordics are to some degree representative of some of the ancient Anunnakis. You follow?
Yes, I've heard you.
That said, I'd like to go into the origins of those beings,
What beings?
the Anunnaki,
All right.
and the bloodlines of the Anunnaki.
We will delve a tiny bit into that.
Can you tell me the origins of Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth, his father and bloodline?
Well, Hermes Trismegistus is farther down the bloodline than Thoth is?
Same incarnation of the same soul?
Well, same oversoul. Remember that reincarnation is an illusion.
Yes.
Yes, everything exists at once.
Yes.
You can have the experience of reincarnation, but that's not mechanically what's happening. It's simply that as you perceive through linear time the connections that you make from the now, you perceive them as if they are memories.
Yes.
Therefore, you call them reincarnations instead of multiple simultaneous incarnations, coexistent with me now.
Yes.
Nevertheless, the idea in linear terminology of Hermes is a little bit farther down the line, and yes, is connected to the idea of a similar oversoul extension to Thoth. But in terms of the idea of the Anu origins, you're actually talking about something that comes from a different dimension.
So you couldn't say like Enki is the previous bloodline before Thoth.
You're talking about something that is actually a parallel bloodline, not necessarily a linear one.
Okay. So the different, would you say the two warring factions of like what they talk about Enlil and Enki
Yes.
being two different distinct bloodlines that have been at
That's
conflict?
more precise.
Okay. And so the Brotherhood of the Snake and the origins of the Brotherhood of the Snake were from the Enki lineage of the incarnations of like Adam, Jesus, and some of those teachers.
The snake representing the concept of ancient wisdom, yes.
Then the Anunnaki come and like guide us.
They did. What do you think some of the stories in the Bible are about?
Okay.
Of angels coming down to guide you, of being led through the desert by a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud. What do you think that's about? It's about the guidance of the Anunnaki who recalled those who created Homo sapiens because that was against their law to do so. But they then realized that they had to take responsibility for guiding you up to a certain point until they felt that they could let you sort of evolve on your own to see what would happen.
Do you think that though they will return after
They have evolved in a certain way that they are no longer the Anunnaki you knew hundreds of thousands of years ago. Some of them have evolved into what you will now experience as the Pleiadians.
There was another thing that I hope it's not too personal and you can say if it was.
Oh, all right.
Okay. We were discussing, and you stopped what we were discussing because there was a synchronicity between you and April when I brought up the DNA work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I find some interest in the DNA work that I do everywhere.
Yes.
And I was going to incorporate that into my book.
Go ahead.
I will, thank you.
All
I was wondering if you could give me any pointers on that. There are different cultures around the world that would assist me in
Well,
a
again,
broader,
the idea
unified
now
version.
is that many of the markers that were turned off in the Anunnaki hybridization that created Homo sapien are now being turned on in your DNA. This is why you're experiencing expansions of consciousness, becoming more sensitive to formerly invisible energies, becoming more what you call telepathic and psychic. Even the desire to explore spirituality is the result of certain genetic markers being turned on that have been turned off for thousands upon thousands of years. So you are becoming more like the Anunnaki now, and therefore it is important for you to maintain the vibrational state of being that you prefer, so that you will not necessarily walk down exactly the same path, but will be your own version of that idea in a positive and constructive way.
I have so two big topics or questions that I wanted to go over.
Yes.
The first is the story of Adam, Eve, and Lilith.
Yes.
I was wondering if maybe you can shed some light on that, and did these people actually exist?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes, although the story, you know, in a sense, has been rendered into something simplified as a tale, as a metaphor. The idea of, in the ancient language of the Anunnaki, that injected their genetics into Homo erectus to create Homo sapien, is that the male version of Homo sapien they created in their language is Adama. The female version is Eva, which you have transliterated into Adam and Eve over time. So the idea is that, of course, there was a first male and a first female, but the idea has been truncated, collapsed, condensed into the metaphorical story that you know in your Bible. Lilith represents again the idea of the continuation of the line of Homo sapien in the genetic alterations by the Anunnaki, and represents kind of the concept of independence, the ultimate independence of the human race, and the balance point that needed to be achieved when it was recognized that Homo sapien had been created, and offered the third alternative. As always, we talk about the idea that there is a trinity in existence, not just a duality. So the concept of Lilith and the feminine principle in balance, the masculine and feminine principle in balance in Lilith, creates the midpoint, the third reality, the balance point in the Trinity between the two dualities of male and female.
And why is it that Lilith, it seems to be that she was taken out of the modern version of what we learn?
Because as a patriarch grew and wanted to reinforce the idea of male dominance, the concept of the balance point of male and female in one body was anathema to them. And they sought to remove it so that they would retain control and empowerment over others and over the female side.
Okay, and that's interesting. And was this all done in a laboratory in Temple Mount, at Temple Mount?
There were many different labs around your planet, but the primary one was in the Middle East. The idea, again, is that, remember, this wasn't all done all at once. This took some time. So the idea of this story is quite condensed, and it condenses many, many decades, even hundreds of years of time in the creation of Homo sapien.
Okay. The Garden of Eden, can you shed some light on what that was and maybe where it was?
Well, again, in the Middle East, as given, between what you call the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in the Fertile Crescent, being the primary contact point and laboratory and civilization that the Anunnaki established when they came to Earth and spread out from there.
Okay. And the serpent that came to Eve, who or what was this?
This is simply an indication of the awakening of the genetic markers that would allow the female to be closer to the concept of the original Anunnaki genetic structure. This is why you have the double intertwined serpents on your medical caduceus still today, as an indication of the genetics laboratories and the genetics that were injected into Homo erectus to create Homo sapien, being that in the feminine side there was an alteration that allowed the feminine side to become a little bit more aware of the situation than the masculine side, and a little bit closer in expression to the original Anunnaki genetic strain.
That's interesting.
It also represents, therefore, the idea of ancient knowledge, that in a sense, because of the genetic alterations in the feminine form, there was more capability of accessing the knowledge of the Anunnaki.
That's fascinating. And in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, the Anunnaki, is that translated into Elohim?
For the most part, yes. Although the Elohim can also be other beings that were encountered from time to time. But in general, it's a reference to the ancient Anus, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Bashar.
Yes.
And on another topic, so I seem to be obsessed with this story. I think it's the most exciting story, spectacular story, the story of Exodus.
Yes, yes.
Did the Jews know that were they aware that it was aliens that were taking them out of Egypt? Or
not as such. They didn't really comprehend the concept of aliens in the same way that you do today. They understood that the beings were from a higher dimensional realm, but the idea to them at that time, in their understanding, is what they ultimately decided was beings from heaven. Beings from above.
Is that what? So right now in our reality, it's kind of, we think that it's God that led the Jews out of Egypt and not actual beings. And was this what they wanted us to believe, or was it just a misunderstanding and it just kind of?
It is not that you were given information that would allow you to necessarily understand the specifics of it. So it is something that simply grew in human understanding over time based on the lack of information you had about exactly what these beings were, because they did not deem that humans were ready to understand the full implications of beings from other civilizations among the stars.
And do you think we are now?
Well, you obviously understand that there can be civilizations among the stars. You're talking to one right now.
I am.
Many people on your planet are willing to accept the possibility, at least, that there can be other civilizations on planets around other stars. This is not something that is necessarily that strange to your civilization anymore. You talk about it quite a bit in your scientific and astronomical communities.
True. Yes. And more.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could describe, I would really like to know what the interaction was like between Moses and the ETs at the top of Mount Sinai.
Some of it was physiological, some of it was telepathic. He was invited into a craft. Many things he was made to forget, but some things he was allowed to remember, as according to what was necessary for the proper approach and interactions and relationship between those beings and the people at that time, so that they could be guided.
And lastly, the Star of David, where did that come about, and why is it the symbol of the Jews?
It is the symbol of the relationship between those beings and those people, and in general between the above and the below. It is the intersection of the higher dimensions with the lower physical reality. It is a flattened form of the Merkaba.
Okay, so why wouldn't it be just the symbol of humanity? Why not the symbol for all of us?
It is, as I said. I just said that. At the time, it was the symbol of the relationship between those specific beings and the group that they were guiding. But it is, in general, the symbol of the relationship from the above to the below, from the heavens to the earth.
Okay. And one last hard question. Why did they save the Jews from Egypt, but they didn't protect them or save them in World War II from the Holocaust?
It was important to allow certain genetics from the Anunnaki line to survive up to a certain point. But beyond that, once there was dominion of the humans of the earth to make their own decisions, their decisions could not be intervened or interfered with beyond a certain point.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bashar. I love you very much.
Our unconditional love to you as well. By the way, had they not tinkered with you, you also would not have evolved the concept of religion in the way that you did. You would simply have, as you're rediscovering, a concept of a natural relationship to creation rather than intermediaries. It was because many of them made you believe they were gods and allowed you to worship them that the entire basis of religion was created on your planet. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't for their existence in your lives back then, about 500, 300,000 years ago. Yes, it is. And again, we're talking holographic history, because there are many versions of this. You are evolving to a point where you will have a version that will serve you in the best possible way, which is one of the reasons why, when open contact actually does occur, one of the gifts you will be given is what you might think of as your true history on Earth. All of it. All the missing pieces. Everything. And then you will get to decide which parts you relate to and how you can allow yourself to be the people that you prefer to be, that would be representative of the kind of people that would have been created by the true history. That is in alignment with who you truly are. That's what we mean by true history. Not that there is only one history that is true, but that it is the history that is true for who you prefer to be, vibrationally. Does this make sense? Yes. All right.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Okay, I got my name speak twice, so I think I'm desperate. Sort of. Okay, I have two challenges right now.
Yes.
One is how to be present, and another challenge is how to love myself.
How to love yourself?
Yes.
How to be present?
Yeah.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is there any time when you actually aren't present? When you are past or future? Are you here now?
Physically, yes, but I have sort of anxiety, and then my mind is racing all the times.
Racing.
Racing thoughts.
Well, what are your fears? What are you afraid will happen to you?
That's what I'm asking.
Say again.
That's what I'm asking. I don't know what I'm afraid of or what my fear is.
Of course you do. I'll ask it this way. Starting with this line of questioning. Are you living your highest excitement? Yes or no?
Yes.
Then how can you be afraid if you're living your highest excitement?
I don't know.
So the clue is, in that answer, if you are experiencing fear, you are not living your highest excitement. Because if you're actually in a state of excitement, there is no definition of fear within it. When you experience fear, you have left the state of excitement. Do you understand?
Yes.
So, I'll ask the question again this way. What are you afraid will happen if you continue to act on your highest excitement?
I've never thought about it.
Think of it now. What are you afraid will happen if you continue to act on your highest excitement all the time? What are you afraid might happen?
I will be somebody else.
What's wrong with being somebody else? Because the only somebody else you could possibly be is more of yourself if you're acting on your highest excitement. When you give over to fear and choose fear, that's when you're not being you. That's when you're being somebody else. So since you're already being somebody else, and you're used to doing that by giving into your fear, why not stop being somebody else and be yourself by acting on your excitement?
Probably because I know what or who or what kind of person I don't want to be, but still I'm not quite clear about what kind of person that I want to be.
But if you start at least knowing what kind of person you do not prefer to be,
I'm crystal clear.
then what's left? If you are doing everything you can to not be the person you don't prefer to be, would that not mean automatically that what's left is being the person that you do prefer to be? What else is there?
Well, I don't know.
Exactly. Nothing.
Probably that's what I'm afraid of, that there's somebody that I don't know.
But there are many things you don't know. You will never know everything. Do you think you have to know certain things before you can simply act on your excitement?
I have OCD. I really want to know everything.
You can't know everything. It's not possible for you to know everything, and in fact, knowing everything is getting in your way. Do you understand? Yeah. You're not allowing room to flow. You're not allowing room for spontaneity. You're not allowing room for synchronicity. Insisting on knowing everything before you're willing to take a step is the surest way to stop yourself from taking any step, because you will never know everything you need to know. You can't. Your physical mind isn't capable of knowing everything it needs to know to move through life. May I ask you another question?
Yes.
Have you ever been given a present?
Pardon?
Have you ever been given a present, like on your birthday? A gift? Have you ever been given a gift?
No.
Never? No one's ever given you any gifts? Ever in your life, on your birthday or anything?
Well, I can count it with my fingers, one hand.
Why have you never received gifts from anyone?
Probably that I'm hungry of love because I never get loved.
Well, you have to start with loving yourself.
Yes,
why should anyone else love you if you don't love yourself?
That's my challenge, as I said.
So, what's stopping you from loving yourself?
I don't like myself.
Sure you do.
I don't like myself.
But that must only mean that you don't think you're worthy of it. Why don't you think you're worthy of it? Why don't you think you deserve love?
Oh, probably because of my childhood trauma. I was constantly denied by my mom and humiliated by her.
All right. But now you are not a child anymore, are you?
No, but that trauma is still there. The pain is still there.
Who says the trauma is still here? Okay. You do. You're making the connection. You're creating a past connection that no longer exists. You're assuming the trauma is still with you. You're creating a continuity that doesn't have to be there.
But I got confused. One night, I sort of remembered those sad memories and let it go.
But you are creating those memories now. You see, you think remembering is of the past. It's not. You're creating memories every moment.
So those memories are still serving me, sort of?
They don't exist for you if you understand that they don't exist for you now, because every moment you are a new person, literally.
Yes.
In order to experience what you're calling a memory of the past as if it's real, you have to actually recreate that over and over and over and over again. You have to say, This is part of who I am right now. This is part of who I am right now. This is part of who I am right now. And you're doing this billions of times per second because you have created an assumption that you have to do that. You don't. You can break the continuity. Whatever happened didn't happen to you, it happened to someone else because you are no longer that person. Literally, no longer and never have been that child. You can actually re-identify, redefine yourself right now as a completely different person who never had that past, who never had that history, if you understand how reality works. You are zero every moment, square one every moment, back to scratch every moment, and the only way that it seems as if that's your past is because you are continuing to believe and insist that it is when it's not. That's another person. She has nothing to do with you. You have nothing to do with her, except for the pieces that you want to remain connected to, that you believe serve you at this point. But if there are pieces you believe no longer serve you, then they're not real for you because they never happened to you, the person you are now.
Okay.
This is literal. It's not a metaphor. The way you experience physical reality, the way you experience time, it's a side effect. Time is a side effect of your consciousness shifting through billions of versions, parallel versions of yourself every second. It's like frames on a film strip, where the projector light has to go through each frame in order to create the illusion of movement and time and change. But this frame over here really has absolutely nothing to do with this frame back here. They're two completely different frames. And when you decide to project your consciousness light through a different frame, you will see that this frame has nothing to do with the other frames if you don't prefer that it does. This is actually physically how reality is constructed, a frame at a time, billions of times per second. So every moment you get to decide what frame you are, how you define that moment, who you are in that moment, and it has to have nothing, doesn't have to have anything to do with who you have ever been, because that wasn't you. Is this sinking in a little bit?
Yes.
Let this idea percolate within you. Start exploring, really start understanding and wrapping your mind around the fact that you truly, literally are a different person every moment. I know that when you look in the mirror and you say, well, that still looks like my face, it's not the face that was there a split second ago. It's another one that you've created to create the illusion of continuity, the illusion that you're the same person. Person and personality are artificial constructs. How you define them is how you experience them. So all you're actually saying is, at some point in what you call the past, someone convinced you to buy into a belief system that you are the same person every single moment, and that what happens to one version of you must continue to happen to all the other versions of you. That's one way to experience reality, but it's not the only way, and it is absolutely false in a general sense. It's only true if you have bought into it as a truth. But if it no longer serves you to think of yourself that way, as having been that child, because it simply doesn't resonate with you anymore, and the things that were done simply don't serve you anymore to hold on to, you have every right and every power to let that go, because it actually doesn't exist for the new person you are every moment until you say it does. You are in complete control of feeling out of control. You can never be out of control. To be able to have an experience of being out of control, you have to be in control to create the out of control experience. That's what you're doing, because you have been convinced that that's what you must do. But there is absolutely no rule within creation that says you have to do that. You can decide every moment who you are, and you can decide that what was has nothing to do with what is. It's up to you. I understand it may take you a little practice to wrap your mind around this concept of how reality is structured, and that's all right. But we would recommend and suggest that you do practice that and wrap your mind around this understanding of the nature and structure of reality, because it will set you free when your mind finally grasps it. You will be free to be who you prefer to be. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Another question, please. I'm a massage therapist,
Yes.
and I'm really happy about what I'm doing right
All
now.
right.
And I understand what you said. All techniques are permission slips, and
Yes.
the healers never heal. And
Yes.
but I'm still curious about the idea behind acupuncture and the meridian lines, please.
You must repeat that.
Okay, the traditional Chinese medication.
Yes.
The idea is people have energy lines. We
Yes,
call
I
it
understand.
the meridian lines, and also actual
Yes.
acupuncture points.
Yes, yes, yes. So,
What's the idea behind that?
the idea is that everything is a vibrational pattern of energy, of consciousness. So some people can work with that, are sensitive to that, can understand how to read those energy maps, and other people simply don't get that. They don't work with that.
But
They don't work that way.
how it works?
It works through resonance, through vibration. In other words, any healer is doing this. No matter what the technique, no matter what the permission slip, all healers are doing the following thing. They are creating a resonance within their own energy field. And that resonance, that vibration, is representative of the balanced, healed state. When a person comes to you to be healed, what they then do, if they wish to, if they believe they can do, whether they know it or not, they attempt to match the vibrational field you're giving off. And if they choose to match it, if they choose to synchronize and harmonize with that energy vibration in your field and create that same vibration in their field, like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony, then the state of being that you are suggesting to them will then allow them to experience that in their own field, because they've matched that frequency, and they will heal themselves.
So it means take both sides, both the healers and the patients, to agree that this technique works. So.
Yes. Because sometimes many people may go to a healer with the strong belief that they cannot be healed. Therefore, if somebody does not experience a healing or a balancing and goes away, you've still given them what they asked for, because they still came to you to prove they can't be healed. So they got what they wanted. So you've still done them the service of simply being there for them to allow them to prove to everyone they cannot be healed. You have still given them that gift.
Okay, thank
Does
you.
that help you?
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
My question, I think it's about discernment. So in my younger days, I used to be more into like activism. I was a vegan, and I was into like passing out pamphlets, you know,
Yes.
even setting up fundraisers and things like that. And
Yeah.
then I started to do more inner work,
Yes.
and I realized that, you know, as
Well, they can go hand in hand, you know.
yes, of course. So I'm noticing
Yes.
that, like, I don't really watch the news. I don't really participate in any political, you know, activities or
All
marches
right.
or anything like that. I do vote, but
Yes.
I'm wondering if I'm kind of starting to blur the line of inner peace and apathy.
No. Inner peace is not apathy.
In my personal case, that I somehow, choose to believe that my apathy is inner peace.
Why? You know the difference between the two, or you wouldn't have two different words for it.
That is true.
I know. So you know what apathy feels like, and you know the difference between that and inner peace.
Okay.
So where's the confusion?
I guess the confusion is, I don't know, like, I guess the confusion is, like, I don't feel exactly called to take strong actions.
What do you feel called to take strong actions in?
Well, my personal creative projects and...
Such as?
Such as...
What are you excited about? What are you passionate about doing that you're not doing?
Dancing and, other creative, like traveling, and I do those things.
All right. Mm-hmm. But is there something else you're not doing that you would prefer to be doing?
Well, when a friend was sharing with me about what's really going on at the borders, with the
Yes.
what the ICE is doing and all that stuff, and I was, my first reaction was, well, this is.
What would you prefer to be doing? I don't need the backstory.
I feel like I should be more involved.
Not should. What do you prefer to be doing?
I prefer to do creative projects that make me feel happy, but I feel like maybe I can, on a personal level, make small donations or,
do whatever you wish, but what we're attempting to lead you to understand is that if you are acting on your true passion, some expression of that will actually be helping more than anything you could do that is not an expression of your passion.
Okay.
You understand? You may not understand how those things are connected.
Yeah.
But they are if you are working and doing things in the action of your passion, because other people will see that and you will have more effect on them than you otherwise might doing the things you think you should be doing in the way you think you should be doing it that isn't coming from your passion.
Okay.
But only feels like an obligation. And when you do that, that's where the apathy comes in, because you're not excited about what you're doing, so you no longer care. So when you do what you love to do, you are more of a living example to others than you may know. Even someone you may never meet, seeing you walking down the street being this wonderfully happy person because you are creatively expressing yourself, may have more of an effect on that stranger than you would ever have an effect on people you know when you're doing something that you don't love to do. It may change everything for them in their lives just by seeing the living example you are of following your passion. You don't have to know exactly how those people get impacted by you. You just know that they are being impacted where they need to be. By you being yourself, that's the whole idea. When you are the shape of the puzzle piece you were created to be, you fit in the puzzle picture and help create the big picture that supports all of the pieces that make it up. But if you're not being the shape you were made to be, you don't fit. You're not helping to create the big picture. The big picture cannot be experienced by the other pieces as supporting them. Make sense?
Yes.
Does this help?
Yes.
So follow your passion, act on your passion in whatever expressions naturally come, and you will be led through synchronicity to do the things, and sometimes they may look similar to what you were doing before, but you will have found a new way to do them from your passion that you may not have considered before because you weren't in the proper state to see that that was also an alternative way to do it.
Yes.
You have to be the vibrational state to even conceive of the way to do certain things that are representative of that state. Otherwise, those thoughts, those inspirations don't come to you because you're not on the wavelength to receive them.
Okay.
All right? So start with the formula and just see what happens, see where you're led, and whatever opportunity is presented to you, always look for the way to do it in the most exciting way you can, and have the discernment to tell the difference between whether it is truly representative of your preference or not. And of course, the remember to make sure that you're not the one dampening the excitement with negative belief systems you're unaware of.
Okay.
Yes? Does this help?
Yes.
All right.
One follow-up question may have just the same answer.
Maybe.
But so I started out creatively as an actor, and I used to pursue it a lot and a lot. And then I started to pursue other things that were more exciting to me. And then
At the time.
And so I kind of just not really focused on acting. And then the weird thing was I started just booking jobs and getting more auditions.
Yes.
But my excitement is still feels like somewhere else. But this keeps happening. So I keep following through.
Again, are you blocking what could be exciting with your assumptions that it's not?
Yes.
Then use your imagination to see that these things are coming to you in a way that gives you an opportunity to really look for other ways in which you might be able to find the excitement in that, or finally and ultimately determine that it is simply not your preference, not your excitement, but because you keep repeating it for yourself, you are trying to tell yourself something. And it might simply be that you have too many negative fear-based belief assumptions about what doing that may actually mean, when you could be using your imagination to figure out how it would be more exciting to do it in a different way than most people might assume. Think, as you say, outside the box. And finally, actually even get to the point where you realize there is no box.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You are welcome. Now, I'm going to audition you right now.
No.
Show me a person finding their way back to their seat.
Hello, Bashar.
And you good day.
So my question is about how to balance my logical mind with my emotional mind.
Yeah.
Because I seem to
IQ with EQ.
I seem to get out of balance either.
You seem to?
Yeah.
Or do you choose to? Which way feels more self-empowered?
Choosing.
Because if you're choosing to be out of balance, at least you know you're in control of that and can change it. When you say, well, I seem to be, you're giving up your power to some random concept that doesn't allow you to know that there is any probability of really changing that. So the first step in changing it is to admit and take responsibility for having chosen it, because then you're in power to change it. Now, you may not know why you chose it, that's fine. But it will be in your unconscious mind somewhere a definition that made it seem logical to choose that. That's what we have described before as the motivational mechanism within all of you. This is a given law. You will always, always, always move in the direction of what you believe to be in your best interest. You will always immediately and automatically move away from what you believe is not in your best interest. So if you can see yourself choosing things that you know are not in your best interest, and you understand the motivational mechanism we've just described, that can only mean that you must be making what is in your best interest seem to not be, or what is not in your best interest seem to be. That's the only reason you would choose something that's not in your best interest, is you have a definitional belief attached to it that makes it seem to be better than the alternative. You understand? Because if people, for example, are afraid to move ahead on their excitement because they have a belief that something bad will happen to them, and they believe that not moving is a safer bet, they will stay where they are. They will keep choosing the safer bet because they have attached to their excitement a negative definition of the outcome. So you'll avoid it at all costs. When you realize that that may be the kind of definition you've attached to it, you will realize that doesn't make sense. It's illogical. And as soon as you realize there's no reason to attach a negative definition to your excitement, then that definition is gone. And you can start choosing things that you know are in your best interests. Because you will have cleared out the definitions that would make it seem otherwise. Is this making some sense?
It is making some sense.
Can you apply it to any specific definitions within you that would allow you to choose things you know are not necessarily in your best interest?
I guess I would have to become more conscious of all my choices.
I guess so. Well, let me ask you this question, because again, this is usually the one for your people that will typically, not always, but typically reveal what the definition is, the fear-based definition is. And the question is, if you were to actually move forward on your passion in life, what are you afraid might happen? What are all the reasons you create for yourself to not move in the direction of your preference, of your excitement, of your passion?
Running out of money.
Running out of money. Oh, all right. Are you saying that that's not an exciting thing? It could be. It could be the best thing that ever happened to you. How do you know?
That's a good point.
Thank you.
It could be.
You see, this goes back to what we say about your definitions, because we understand how things work on your world in general. But the idea is that many of you become way too focused on one particular way in which things work when there are other ways. And you're not allowing your definition to be broad enough to include the other ways. When you focus only on one symbol of abundance, such as money, not invalidating it, not discounting it at all, but it's only one symbol. There are other symbols of abundance, other symbols of support. But when you only focus on one as if that's the most important one, you are closing the doors through which other forms of support and abundance could come, because you're saying you won't recognize them. If it's not this, I can't be supported. I don't understand how I could possibly be supported if it doesn't come in this form. That's a very limiting and restrictive belief system. But when you understand that abundance is simply one of the natural tools of excitement, and it will bring you whatever form of abundance and support you need to continue to act on your excitement, then you can relax your definition and open all the windows and doors and let abundance come in all its forms. Sometimes somebody may just give you something. That's a form of abundance, you know. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yes.
Sometimes synchronicity will bring you information that you need at exactly the right time. That's a form of abundance, you know.
Yes.
So why not let more forms of abundance come into your life rather than worrying that you might lose one particular form?
That sounds like a good idea.
Why, thank you. The idea is that if money needs to be there, then the right amount of money will come, but it may not be sufficient to allow for the big picture, but the rest of the other forms of abundance will fill the other spaces. So that sometimes it may be, well, you just need this much money, and you need this much gift, and you need this much synchronicity, and all together, you've got your support. Mm-hmm. If it needs to be all money, that's what will come, because that will be the path of least resistance. But your first clue that it might not be the path of least resistance is it's not coming. That's your moment to look around and go, could there be other forms of abundance that I could allow in? That's where your imagination opens up. Because when you're on the level of the vibration of your passion, you will actually be capable of thinking, of imagining other things that might bring other forms of abundance in. But if you're only focused on one form, you are actually not only closing the door to other forms of abundance, you're closing the doors in your imagination to being even capable of imagining how other forms of abundance could come to you. So you will not even conceive of opportunities you could be acting on that could give you everything you need, because you will not allow them to be visible, because you're not in the correct frequency. Mm-hmm. You cannot perceive what you're not the vibration of first. This is just physics. Mm-hmm. You have to be that frequency first. And when you are, all sorts of things that are commensurate with that frequency will come to you. You'll think of things. Other people might call the things you imagine crazy, but that doesn't mean they won't work for you. They don't have to work for them. They just need to work for you. Mm-hmm. Is this making some sense?
Definitely.
Is this helping?
A lot.
All right. Anything else?
So do you think it would be wise to just follow my highest excitement and not be concerned with societal expectations?
Let me think about that for a moment. Please understand this. The philosophies you think are what you're hearing are not philosophies. We're actually giving you literally an instruction manual for how reality works. We're literally giving you formulas. You follow?
Yes.
It is no different when we say, act on your highest passion every moment that you can, to the best of your ability, taking it as far as you can until you can take it no further, with zero insistence or assumption as to what the outcome ought to be. That is literally an energy formula. It is physics. It's an instruction manual. It will activate everything you need. It will leave nothing out. It will give you all the tools in the kit of excitement because it's a complete kit, and nothing relevant will be left out. And all you have to do is remain in a positive state no matter what happens, and you will get the beneficial effect. This is an instruction manual, absolutely no different at all than if someone gave you an instruction manual to operate a piece of machinery, to learn how to drive one of your automobiles. You would say, the instructions say, find the key. Oh, this must be the key. There's a picture of it. Yes, looks just like it. Put it in the slot called the ignition. Oh, all right. Put it in. Turn it this way. Turn it this way. The engine will start. Yes, I hear it started. Now, step on the brake. Step on the brake. That's that one according to the instruction manual. Put the car in gear. Okay, that must mean this thing here. And now step on the gas. The car should move. Oh, yes, it's doing that. Why is it doing all of that? Because I followed the instruction manual. Simple as that. What we are giving you is literally a description of how reality works. It's literally an instruction manual. So if you actually do it as precisely as you can, like you would for any instruction manual, you will see that reality is already working. The instruction manual we're giving you doesn't mean it's not working. The instruction manual we're giving you is giving you an opportunity to experience that it already works in a positive way for you instead of a negative way. Because synchronicity is always working, but you can experience negative synchronicity or positive synchronicity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, if you really understand that this is an instruction manual and you just follow the instructions just as you would with any machine, you will see it's that simple. It works. Mm-hmm. Does that help?
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Can I ask one more question?
That was a question. You want to ask another one?
One more.
Yes.
What if you follow the instruction manual and follow your highest excitement and you end up in a less than preferable state?
Thank you for bringing that up. You see, this, as you have just said it, is the absolute crux of the issue that all of you have difficulty with. When you say, if I follow my excitement, what if something less than exciting happens? What you have to realize is what you've just said is not a definition of excitement. It's a different definition. You follow me? To say, I am acting on my excitement, but something can happen that's not representative of my excitement is not a definition of your excitement. By definition, when you are in your excitement, nothing can happen that you don't find exciting, even if it's what you don't prefer. You find it exciting because you know that to stay in that state means you will extract the benefit from it. So to say something bad can happen when I'm acting in my excitement, when I'm in my state of excitement, is an oxymoron. It's a contradictory definition. It's not a definition of excitement. It's a definition of a completely different reality experience. The reality experience of, I think I'm acting on my excitement, but I find out I'm not. That's the definition you just gave me. It's not a definition of excitement. So that's why it's so important to be clear about your definitions. Your definitions have to be purely representative of the state that we're talking about, or they're not that state. Your definitions will be only commensurate with whatever state is reflective of the definition you're creating. And that's a different state and a different reality experience altogether. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yes.
Is that making some sense?
Yes, I guess what happened is I followed my excitement, and then I
Didn't get what you preferred.
didn't get what I preferred.
But why should you? That's what I'm saying. You see, when we talk again about acting on your passion, it has to be done for its own sake, not because of what you think is supposed to happen. Because as I said, sometimes you will get things that objectively, neutrally, you may recognize are not things you prefer. But you have to know it's there for a positive reason if you're actually in a positive state. If you don't know it's there for a positive reason, you're not in a positive state.
I understand.
You have to know that no matter how it looks, no matter how it was created, no matter what anyone else's opinion is about it, you, by staying in a positive state, can only extract a positive and beneficial effect from that circumstance, from that manifestation. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter what happens. It only matters what you do with what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's what matters. Matter. That's what matters. The circumstance doesn't create the material. The state of being does.
Mm-hmm.
Is this making sense?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right. We'll see.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.